Everyone has a story to tell. Welcome to DingoTalk, where we explore the experiences that make us who we are. Here's your host, Carlo Guadagnino.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is DingoTalk. My guest this week is the head football coach at Bowdoin College, Coach B.J. Hammer. Before we get into Coach Hammer's story, let's talk about Bowdoin College. It's located in Brunswick, Maine. They have about 1,881 students. It's $85,000 before aid, comes down to $27,000 after aid. They have a 7% acceptance rate and a 94% graduation rate. Their top three majors are government and legal studies, economics and biology. And again, as I tell you every week, make sure that you talk to your guidance counselor, talk to your coaches, talk to the Bowdoin coaches and admissions people, and just really do your research. But if Bowdoin's a place for you, you can find more information about them at www.bowdoin.edu. Again, that's www.bowdoin.edu. Now, Coach Hammer, we're going to talk to him. Again, as I told you last week and a couple weeks prior to this, a lot of these interviews were done during the camp time. So these aren't, the interview was not done this week. It's just when we're releasing it. And then another note for our production here, overtime, the segment, it does not line up anymore with Serenity's schedule with work. So we are going to continue doing it. It's just going to become a social media predominant segment. So you won't see overtime in the coming future. We might try to get it back here next year, but for the time being, we won't be doing that. That being said, let's talk about Coach Hammer again. We're going to, Coach White, who we had on, who's taken over the Whittier program, talked about Coach Hammer. Coach Hammer made his way out to Whittier. He also is the head coach at Allegheny and a couple other places in between. A lot of great things that he's going to cover here and gives us a little bit of a glimpse into the NESCAC. But it's not my job to tell Coach Hammer's story. It's Coach Hammer's. So without further ado, here he is. What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Dingo Talk. My guest this week is the head football coach at Bowdoin, Coach B.J. Hammer. Coach, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Getting ready to get the football season rolling here in about a little over a week, and guys reporting to camp on the 18th and 19th. So excited to talk a little ball.
Absolutely. And before we can get to this year, we got to find out how you got to this point. So 1997, how do you find yourself at Wabash?
Man, it makes me feel a little old. It was back then. 1997 seemed forever ago. But I grew up in Carmel, Indiana, went to Carmel High School, played football there at Carmel for a legendary Indiana coach, Jim Belden. Had a great high school career, enjoyed it there. And then Greg Carlson was a head coach at Wabash College at the time, and really was being recruited by some MAC schools, some D2 schools, and honestly went on my visit to Wabash and just fell in love with the place. Serious about football, good academics. My family had gone to small private colleges like that, and it just seemed like a perfect fit for me, and really enjoyed my time there. So got there in the fall of 97 and played all 4 years there, had a great career, and it was an awesome experience for sure.
Now, when do you know that you want to move from shoulder pads to visor and clipboard, or whistle and clipboard, I should say? Not every coach wears a visor.
Yep. That's a great question. So I honestly, it wasn't really part of the plan. I started thinking about it a little bit probably after my junior year. I just loved sitting with my coaches, my defensive coaches, and talking football and seeing the scheme. I really liked that. And honestly, after my senior year, I was lucky enough. I got invited to play in the Aztec Bowl, which is kind of the Division III All-American game, and sat on the bus with some great coaches. Bob Reed, who was the coach at Augustana, won so many national titles, and spend time with these guys. And I was really thinking about law school, but talking with them, and it was kind of like, man, maybe I want to try this. And so I was thinking about taking a year off before I did it. Was thought about maybe playing in Europe, and had a little bit of an injury that just wasn't healing up in the legs. And Chris Creighton took over as head coach, now the head coach of Eastern Michigan, took over as head coach at Wabash, and asked me if I wanted to be We didn't have GAs, but intern essentially. So same kind of pay scale, of course, but good first year coaching, and I loved it. It was great. I had Chris Creighton was a head coach, who's D1 head coach now. Neil Nethery was a D coordinator, who was D coordinator at Texas San Antonio, then Eastern Michigan, a bunch of other places. And Brian Ward was on staff there, who's the DC at Arizona State. So I was around some really good coaches and learned so much football, learned recruiting, and just kind of fell in love with it and stuck with it ever since.
Now, I ask every coach that I've had on that has, finished their playing days and then gone on to coach right away at their alma mater. I have to ask you, how complicated of a transition is that from going locker mates, locker room buddies, going out on the weekends to now you're in a different position? How does that work? And what's the advice for the guys that are looking to get in?
Yeah, I think it can be interesting your first year out because you're still pretty young. I was 22 or 23. I can't remember at the time. And I had a good relationship with a lot of those guys. My younger brother was on the team, so he was a sophomore that year in 01 when I was coaching there. So I thought it went really well. I got my own position group, got to coach them, really worked on our DNs and their pass rush. And so I think I had a good mutual respect with the guys I was coaching. I had two kind of upperclassmen that were there, and then the young guys who were mostly freshmen who didn't know me. So I think that was really good. I enjoyed it, but I'll be honest, I think I needed to leave. I needed to go and go to another place and figure it out, because I think if you just stay where you're always at, you're so used to things, you're not going to learn as much. So I moved on to Heidelberg College after that, and then was only there for a short time before I went out to Whittier in California. But I thought it was a good experience, and I think what helped was technically there was a new staff there, so I think it was a different philosophy from what I was a part of, which was good. So I got to learn a lot. But again, I think that it was great. The kids at Wabash have always been awesome young men, and coaching them was awesome. But it was interesting because, like I said, one of them was a senior, and I've been with him for years, and he was a great guy, and I had fun coaching him. So I think it worked well.
And then when you made the move to Heidelberg, what was the biggest difference from your time at Wabash and then your short stint at Heidelberg? What was a big difference that kind of helped you along this coaching journey?
Well, I think it was just the whole thing of going out of a place where you're in your complete comfort zone. Because I had spent the better part of the last 5 years really at Wabash as a student, then as a coach, and then getting out of your comfort zone, going someplace else, and learning football from somebody else was really part of it. And the head coach at Heidelberg who hired me was John Servino, and John is a very good defensive mind. He's out of coaching now, but I probably learned more football from him. Just defensively, it was really incredible. And he was Don Brown, famous Don Brown. He used to be at Michigan, Boston College, and UMass. John was actually his DC at Northeastern. So kind of getting annotated into that system was great for my development as a coach, and just seeing how people operated outside of Wabash, I thought was very good for me.
When Coach, I'm looking, I've got your resume in front of me. After the 1 year at Heidelberg, then you have to be still pretty freaking young to be stepping into the role of a head coaching job out there on the West Coast. Talk to us a little bit about Whittier. We're going to have them on the week after you. So it's an interesting transition. Didn't plan it that way, but it works out. So tell us a little bit about that first head coaching job.
Yeah. So I went out there. I got out there in the spring of 03. Greg Carlson, who was my college coach at Wabash, had left Ball State where he was an assistant, and took over as head coach and brought me out there to be the D coordinator. So still very young to be a D coordinator, but Greg then retired for a short stint, and I took over as head coach in 06. But it was interesting. Honestly, there was 13 kids in the program when Coach Carlson showed up and brought me out there with them, and we had to completely redo the whole thing. So I think we had, and I'm probably wrong on the number, maybe 30 to 35 guys in 2003. And then just the two of us were full-time. We only had some GAs, maybe a couple part-time guys. So between Coach Carlson and myself, we brought in about, I think, 50 to 70 kids over the next couple of years in each recruiting class, and built it up to, when I took over in 06, we had right around 100 to 105 kids on our team. So He is just I give Coach Carlson a ton of credit because just how you structure and build a program and recruit and all that, just how you do things. He just so first class, and I learned a ton from him and brought that with me. And Whittier was fun. It was a great experience. Corey White, who's the head coach now, Corey was one of our GAs, so I've known Corey a long, long time. So when it's funny when he called me and told me he was interested in the job, and I actually talked to the AD Rock Carter for him, and I think Corey will do great. I think Whittier's really going to try to do it right this time, and but it was a great experience. Met my wife out there, and you learn a lot about football. You learn you got to have great players, and you got to develop them, and all that. And I think we did a good job there getting Whittier to respectable. But it was a good experience, and you learn really how to manage every aspect of things when you're a first-time head coach as a young guy. I think I was 27 or something like that. So you definitely learn what you don't know very quickly. And then, I kind of took that with me to my next head coaching job at Allegheny, but obviously spent a good time back at Wabash after my time at Whittier. But it was a great experience. I look back on it fondly, and a lot of good memories and a lot of great young players that I got to coach, and a lot of them are coaching and doing different things. So it's good to hear from those guys every now and again.
And Coach, you jumped the gun on us, but I got to ask you, why, after 2010, why was it time to go back home?
Well, good question. I think Whittier was making changes, and I think it was a good time for us to leave. My wife and I have been married for a couple of years now. We had our first kid, and my wife is from Boston. I'm from Indianapolis. Grandparents are not anywhere close to California.
Nope.
And the opportunity came at Wabash to go be the D coordinator there, and really liked Eric Rayburn, the head coach at the time, and the staff he had there, and they had been really good trying to up the ante, and it was just a great time to come back home and see if we could really get the program to that next higher peak than where it had been. So it was great. Loved coming back, and man, it was a fun 5 years there. We won a lot of football games, 50 plus games, and a couple rings, deep playoff runs, and just awesome kids to coach there, and some of my favorite kids I've ever coached during that 5 year span happened during that time, and just a great time, and learning from Eric Rayburn. And Eric's uncle is Larry Karras, the former head coach of Mount Union, there's no better person to be involved with, and having Eric so directly associated with Mount Union, seeing how they do things, that was quite the experience. And I probably learned more about those kind of that during that 5 years, and it really helped me develop as a coach during that time too.
And then when you get to Allegheny, they're still in the process of making the move over to or they had just made the move over to the PAC, correct?
No, we were still in the NCAC, so I knew them very well. It was definitely interesting. We had just had a really good run in 15, lost in the Elite Eight to St. Thomas. It was very good, and I had a couple opportunities, was looking at a couple head coaching jobs. I knew it was probably time for us to do it. And the AD at Allegheny, I knew her very well, Portia Hoy, her husband, who was a friend of mine in coaching. So I knew she wanted to get Allegheny back. Now, they had struggled. I think they had only won one game in 4 or so years. And, I always tell this. We at Wabash in 13, 14, and 15, we did not give up a single point, barely gave up 100 yards, 2 of them in 3 games,
Right.
So I knew it was going to be a job, but I knew Portia wanted it. I knew that Allegheny community was hungry to get football back. And I thought, hey, I can make an impact. And I felt like I had something to prove from the Whittier thing. So I loved that challenge. And I think some people probably looked at me like I was crazy, but I knew I could get it done there. And I felt like the place needed it. And we went to work. And I think we did a really good job of upping the ante every year, going from 1 win to 3 wins to 6 wins. And I love the buy-in from the players. We brought in some very good young men, and who really broke a lot of records. My wide receiver, Alex Victor, I love him to death, and he was just dynamic, and so much fun to game plan with him. And then we had some good transfers come in that I knew, and really we got to be a very solid program in that 2018 season. So,
and then obviously 2019. To today, we are where we are here at Bowdoin College. But I got to ask you now. So this is your third stop as a head coach, and I've asked a lot of people this question specifically. what is the interview process like? So obviously when you're interviewing to be a GA, it's learn everything. Don't kind of seen and not heard, just try to absorb. Then when you become a position coach, I assume it's a little bit more input to the coordinator and then up. Then when you go to the coordinator, you're talking, you got to know your X's and O's. But I feel like when we do the head coach, when a school's doing a head coaching interview, the last thing they're going to ask you about is, what are you running on third down? What's your first 3 plays that you're coming out of the second half? What is that conversation like? Is it more about recruitment, academics, retention, community engagement, etc.? And how did that go when you got to Bowdoin? Why was Bowdoin a good fit for you?
Right. I hate to say this, but it's a lot of the non-football stuff. You're right on about that. And when you're interviewing for a coordinator position, it is all football. There's always going to be recruiting, philosophical stuff in there, but it's a lot of X's and O's. There's a lot of, this is what we like to do, in how we build it around these certain players and things like that. And that's in all 3 phases of the game. But as a head coach, it's a lot of philosophy. It's a lot of recruiting. Depending on what school you're at, it's a lot of retention. It's a lot of situational things. And I always call being a head coach, it's a lot of risk management, right? You got to assess a lot of things, travel, you're organized and everything. And, at our level, we run everything. So it's a lot of that. When it was interesting, I'll tell the story about Bowdoin. We had just got done with a good season at Allegheny. We were driving back to Indianapolis. I have 3 kids, and they were a little younger at the time. Now they're in 2 teenage girls and a 10-year-old, but they definitely weren't that age then. So we were driving back to Indianapolis in almost to Columbus. And I probably shouldn't have checked my email when I was driving, but I got an email from Bowdoin College, the athletic director in the search firm, asking if I was interested in the job. And my wife is from Boston, about 2 hours away from campus. Father-in-law knows a lot of Bowdoin people. I've always been interested in the NESCAC. Showed my wife, and she looked at me and goes, "You're interested." So it kind of started with that, and honestly, I developed a good relationship with Tim Ryan, our AD, who played football at Bowdoin. A lot of pride in Bowdoin football. And then the more I got involved, and it was a pretty long process. I came out, did an interview with the search committee, not even on campus at first, and then flew back. And then when I got back, they asked me if I wanted to come back out with my wife, and of course I did, because I was definitely interested in the job and having family 2 hours away and all that stuff. And we thought it would be a great move for our kids if it worked out. And came back to campus and really felt like Bowdoin was very hungry to get football to a level where they can compete every week, win conference championships, stuff Bowdoin hadn't been doing recently. And I'll be honest, during the interview, the first person that asked me truly about X's and O's in football was President Rose, our president. So I was in his office, and he was like, "Tell me what you like to run on defense and offense." It was the first time. And later that afternoon, Tim Ryan and I talked a little football or AD, but the committee, we were really talking more philosophical stuff. But I love that. I loved having that honestly, I knew Tim and I had a good relationship, but having the president actually talk about football, and I give President Rose a lot of respect. He had been great. He's no longer here now, moved on, but he was awesome. But it kind of drew me in and made me feel like Bowdoin could be my home, and that we were going to build something really significant here. And that's been the challenge, right? We had COVID hit, and first recruiting class came in the fall of 2020. Talk about a great time. But so in the fall of 21, I had 2 full freshman classes, well over half our teams. We roster limitations in the NESCAC. So we were the youngest team I'd ever seen in my life. And it was fun developing those guys and getting a lot better each year, and seeing those guys reach their potential and win games, win our rivalry games against Bates and Colby in 23, all that stuff. So it's been a journey. We're still not done with it. I think we've made a lot of strides and doing a lot of really good things, but still a lot more work to be done. That's for sure.
Now, Coach, we're going to unpack a lot now that we're here, or we're at Bowdoin, and now. First thing I want to talk about is, talk to me about the NESCAC. So you're our first NESCAC school that we've had on. I would so for my audience and for me, just fill us in. I know you as the Ivy League of Division III, and I know there was some big news announced for 26 coming out of the next NESCAC, but let's set that scene. What is the NESCAC?
Yeah, I think you said it right. We are probably the premier academic conference in the country. And, my wife went to Denison. Denison is a very good academic school. I went to Wabash. Wabash is a very good academic school, but it's hard to quantify the Bowdens, the Williams, the Amherst of the world. And, I kind of feel that, even in the NESCAC, we have our own little academic tiers as well. With Bowdoin definitely in that upper echelon with the two other schools I mentioned, and then take nothing away from Wesleyan and Middlebury and Tufts. They are unbelievable institutions. So, what I think is interesting is, and this is something you don't see even at Wabash, Allegheny, Whittier, there's a little more parity here because of our roster limits, because of the way we all operate with financial aid, where we meet full need on students. So there's a little bit more of that. Obviously, each school has its own admissions categories and how they operate. But we do have we're back to a roster cap again this year at 84. That we were really never able to get above those mid 80s numbers, even when we were unlimited during the COVID time. But I think the NESCAC's an interesting league. It's really, I think there's some really very good players in the league. I think obviously when you have a little bit more of a limitations in recruiting, you're not going to have as much depth. I think when you're at Wabash, we had nearly 190 kids on our roster. So, so it makes it a little bit of difference the way you run practice and stuff like that. But I think if you're healthy, I think a team in NESCAC, if it's us, awesome. If it's somebody else, I know Trinity's been fantastic. Middlebury's had some great teams. During my time here, Williams had a very good team in 21. So I think it's going to be a very competitive team, and there's just no film on us, right?
Right.
We haven't played anybody out of conference in many, many years. So I think it's going to be interesting. I'm really looking forward to whoever makes it. Hopefully it's us, but I think it'll be interesting in 26. And this year in our league, it's going to be a lot of parity. There's a lot of graduates, a lot of fifth years graduated. So it's going to be a very competitive league. But that's what it is. High academics, great young men that are doing it right on both ends. And not that they aren't at other schools, but I think we really do it something special in our league. And I know we do that at Bowdoin for sure.
Now, Coach, can you shine some light? What led to the decision of no longer not being eligible for the NCAA, the Division III NCAA playoffs, which again, for those of you listening, that's going to have not in 25, but that comes in the fall of 26. Right. But what led to that? Why now, I guess, would be the better question.
Yeah, I honestly have no idea why football was the only sport. Obviously I came into this, I didn't go to an NESCAC school. I think they've just always kind of done it. And every other sport in the NESCAC is very successful in almost, I think, every sport, from basketball to soccer to lacrosse to you name it, all the women's sport. I mean, it's really incredible to see what NESCAC does on a national level, and why football was the only sport excluded from that. In my opinion, it wasn't right. And I think the players kind of used their voice. We had two of our rising seniors really got involved. The NESCAC in general got organized. The players from each team formed a group and brought it to the presidents, and they did it the right way. I think they did it that way. And this is not equitable, is the term I'm looking for. And I think the presidents realized that and said, it's time for a change. And I was really proud to see our guys, my players, the kids at Tufts, other schools in the league, they did such a great job organizing that. And as coaches, I think we were all impressed, and they did it the right way, handle their business. And when you handle things the right way, good things can happen. And that brought about good positive change, in my opinion.
Right. Now, Coach, talk to us a little bit about what's a Bowdoin guy. Tell us what are we looking for, minus the fact he's got to be able to play football, because we wouldn't be talking to a football coach if he could. And I say that because the internet's undefeated. I'll tell you, I ask that question almost every episode. What are you looking for as a guy? First thing out of people's mouths has to be, well, he probably has to play football. Yeah. Well, I'm talking to a football coach, so I would hope so. But what are we looking for in a Bowdoin guy?
That's a great question. So we're in the thick of our recruiting right now. Basically, we kind of have about just over 20-something spots in the recruiting class, guys that are rising seniors right now that will graduate, in 26. Already, we're well over 50% done with our recruiting class at this point. But for us to find the guys, they have to fit our funnel. And when I say funnel, academically comes first. I have to do an early review on them with admissions. for admissions to deem them what we say supportable. And that's how I moved to what we call an offer phase. And that allows us to do that. That kind of begins in July for us. And, when we are recruiting guys, we really got to look at their transcript. And even if we look at it and feel good about it, they still need to send information to admissions, and admissions has that final say on things. And so we build our class really off those pre-reads, those early reviews. And we kind of use our best judgment after experience. Hey, this kid fits. He's taken 4 APs, or he's a 1550 SAT.
Right.
So we're going to look at the whole approach, and not just the grades, what they've done in the community, what kind of leadership they have, and they got to fit, right? So not only that, great, he may be the smartest kid you'll ever meet, but if he can't get off a block or he can't block anybody,
right,
he's probably not going to be on my list. So we want to find the best we possibly can. So it's fit in that funnel, and then, man, I want football players. I think academics and football go hand in hand. So when we look at guys, we want guys that want to be developed. They want to win in the worst way, so they're ultra competitive. But we're gonna develop. We don't go to the portal here. We can't do that. So we are going to really develop our guys. We're going to train 6 days a week. We're going to do everything we can to help them become the best version of themselves on and off the field. And then we want them to use their resources here at Bowdoin. Bowdoin has unbelievable resources. Everything we do here is first class. So we want kids who want to take advantage of that, become critical thinkers. But outside of that, man, I want them to love football. I got to feel that from them. I want them to have so much fun playing the game. And when I had a big recruit in here today, a couple of them, and we had a couple big commitments today, which was awesome. Big O lineman and a great DB from New York, so we're really excited. But with those guys directly, and I was just talking with this O lineman from Mass the other day, with kind of my final push with them, I asked him, I go, do you love football? Do you have fun playing? And he goes, Coach, I love football. And I go, if you only love Friday nights, let me know. He goes, Coach, I love practice. I love practice. I love lifting. That to me is what it's about. I love guys that are like that, because we give players Monday off. Tuesday for us as staff, we have now worked all weekend after the game preparing a game plan. I love Tuesday practice. I want to see that game plan go. I want to see our guys execute a little bit. I want to see how, hey, this is what we got to improve on. So I want young men around me that are like that love this game and make Saturdays the icing on the cake, So,
Coach, how was spring ball this year?
It was good. We had a bunch of kids overseas, but the good news for us is 2 of our quarterbacks that are in the battle for the quarterback job right now, we're both here. All of our defense was on campus besides really one starter who was overseas. We had a few O linemen gone, some of our senior O linemen that were kind of in Australia or overseas in Europe. But we had some really good young O linemen step up, which is awesome. So we got, I think, probably 3 of our 5 starters could potentially be 2 sophomores and a junior. So I think it was really good developmental time. That's what we use it for. And we keep building them in the weight room. So I loved it. That was great for our 2 quarterbacks that are battling. We have an incoming freshman as well, but a rising sophomore, rising junior. And we got a lot of reps for those guys. And what I love about spring, you can really slow down. You're not really focused on one opponent. We play Tufts first. So we did a little bit of Tufts, a little bit of Middlebury game 2. But a lot of it was, hey, let's reinstall this. Let's really refine our technique, hand placement on the D-line, really work our blocking technique. Hey, take your time on our reads. Didn't have to move too fast. And like when we get into camp, we got to move fast. We have 20 practices, and then boom, we're playing a game. So
right.
That would be the opposite in camp. We got to go really fast. But in spring, it was good. It was good to do that and get ready to roll.
Now, Coach, is spring one of the things, and this is going to lead into our next set of questions, the changes that have come and maybe are coming, is the formula for spring ball in Division III, is it due for a change? I know it changed. It's changed a lot. Right. I'm sure it's changed a lot since you were a player and now through. I've talked to a bunch of people that at one time we couldn't even have footballs. We were just basically, we were track stars, but on the football team. Do you think that would you like to see a change to the spring ball formula? And what I mean by that is we had a coach on that said he maybe would like to, because it's 16 practices, right?
Right. Yeah.
He would like to see maybe 8 practices with just helmets, 4 practices with shells, and then the last 4 practices, or however you would like to move them, be full tilt, more or less for the big bodies, because we know there's a lot of things the big bodies can do, but the core of their job is blocking and fitting up into the shoulder pads. It's just, is that something you would like to see? Is it, or does it not need to be changed?
Right. We have our own set of rules in the NESCAC. So we don't actually follow the NCAA rules that other schools in the country are following. We have 10 practices. So
Okay.
we have a less practice, and we're helmets only. Now, for us, I'll be honest with our roster limit, because again, you got to remember, we'll probably graduate 20 something. We're going to be down to 60 something. You may have, I know other schools in our league, got a lot of guys overseas like we did. So
Right.
I honestly, I want as much football as possible for everybody. So I'm a proponent of more ball for everybody, as long as you're doing it right. No one wants to hurt their players. We all want to have enough rest. We want to make sure we're all on that, right? But for us in NESCAC, I think 10 practices is fine. It worked great for us. We had good 10 practices, just because we're going to be a little more limited than other schools who may have a larger roster during the spring. But honestly, from talking with my friends at other schools, I think they thought it was about right. I think they got to ease up on some of the rules a little bit with that. Like I think some, because it varies from school to school. Like some people go 11 on 11, some won't. I didn't dive too deeply into the rules because we have our own, and we were doing all helmets and stuff like that. But we maximized our time with our players. And I think it's if you look at it as a great teaching and learning time, that's what it's for, in my opinion. It's for those guys to be able to get back in, learn, because we have a long summer, and most Division III schools, we're not here during the summer. I see my guys when they come back. We'll Zoom with them and check in, but they're doing internships in finance in New York and doing all kinds of stuff. So, so we got to use those 3 weeks of spring ball. We really got to use that as great teaching time. So I like doing that kind of the last 3 weeks of April and the early May, and we maximize it. But I am, if my buddy Coach Cat at Lake Forest wants it, I'm gonna side with him. If Coach Gilbert at Wabash, I'll side with them. So I want them to have what they need to be successful. But I feel like we got what we need in the NESCAC to do that.
Now, Coach, in 2024 now? Yeah, because this is 2025. 2024, we had, speaking of late April, we had two pretty big changes that came to the Division III landscape here for football. One was the expansion of the playoffs, which I think everybody was 100% in agreement with. Is the number 40 the right one? Probably. 41, 42, and 43 probably wouldn't agree with me right now. But if they're on the inside, and they're not on the outside, 40 is a good number. The other big one, up to 18 iPads on the sideline, and you're going to be able to, we're going to approve it, and then, hey, August will be here, better have the iPads ready. So what was the NESCAC's decision on the iPads? One, I'm guessing not 18 of them. And two, did you guys utilize them? Was that a conference decision? And how did it work out?
Right. So we are not using them yet. We're going to use them next year is what it looks like. We're not going to use them this year, but I think with the playoffs on the horizon, you need to be on the same page. What we talked about as coaches, and this is where, in my experience in Division III, from being at some schools that are not as well endowed financially as a Bowdoin and things like that, there's so much discrepancy in Division III between how many are on rosters and everything. That's where the NESCAC's a little bit different with our roster cap, right? But just speaking, when I was at Wabash, we're playing Oberlin. Oberlin only has a certain number of kids, and maybe the football budget's not as big, and that's what worries me a little bit about this. So I wish in that they would probably be a little more of a uniform rule for everybody. This is what you have, because if you're playing one team and they have 12 and one other team can't, they just don't have the money for it or the budget, and they only have two, that's a big difference, right?
Right.
So I think in the NESCAC, we're a little bit more on that footing. I think we're going to do 2 up, 2 down. So one on both sides of the ball, one on both sides of the ball up top is what we discussed. Because even then, and this is what a lot of people don't realize, like at Division I, right? They got professional people running the film. They're doing all that stuff. If we have the person in the headset talking to somebody, we probably have a student turning that thing on, turning that thing off, and the same thing. So it's a little bit different at our level. And that's my only concern, just knowing, I think we do a great job with our film. Coach Harkness is my video coordinator, and we have good students and good student coaches that help with that. But still, these are students. These are not full-time people doing that stuff. So that concerns me a little bit. We've talked to Huddle, we've talked to Game Strat. Both I think have a good product, but I think it's going to be useful. But I'll dive back with you after next year because we just haven't done it yet. But I see the use in it for sure.
Now, Coach, with that being said, do you think that leads us eventually, and you pointed out another one that's, I think, coming probably next year, maybe a year down the road, is the in-helmet communication, which I have now found out from doing a little bit of research. It's not so much the in-the-helmet thing that is expensive, although it does void the warranty in the helmets. And, that, again, that could run into a budget problem. But what I found is that there's an expensive piece to this that gets plugged into your scoreboard so that when the 15-second mark hits, it cuts it out for you. Again, that goes to your discrepancy of, there may be a school that doesn't have the endowment that another school has. But do you think with the iPad specifically, we're all guaranteed 40 games, right? 40 games from the time you're a freshman to the time you're a senior, unless you make the playoffs. Not game 9. You got a strong safety that lowers the shoulder, looks like a clean hit from the sideline, looks like a clean hit from up above. Yellow flag comes out. He's gone for targeting. Not only is he gone for the second half of that game, he's gone for the first half of the next game. Does this iPad, is there a possibility that we're heading towards an iPad that's strictly for the official? Hey, let's go take a look at, maybe I'll call a timeout and you go take a look at that while we're in the timeout. I'd rather not lose a guy for a whole game or a half of football. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a defensive guy. I play defense. I'm a defensive guy by trade as a coach, and I hate the rule. I don't think it should even exist, to be honest with you. I think you flag them. If they do it another time, sure, then disqualify them if it's something. But I hate the rule because in my mind, there's no true malicious intent. A lot of it's a bang play. I don't think officials like calling it either. I don't think they do. From the ones I talked to about it, they really don't want to make that call because, again, that's a kid. That's his game. This is what he works for. And so I think having him for that is awesome because, again, I don't envy officials having to make that kind of call on a bang play, right? That's really hard to do. And then you throw it and you're wrong, or then he cost a kid another game or a half, and that stinks. So I would love to have that. I would just love to abolish the rule altogether, to be honest with you. In my personal opinion, I don't think it's a good rule. I think it needs to go. But that's me.
That's interesting. We share that. I think that it was when the rule was first put in, it made sense. There was a lot of people that we weren't tackling right for a while there. Right. We were tackling with the top of our helmets and hey, game's fast. It happens.
Yeah.
Now a lot of the targeting calls that we see, you watch it back on replay and it's not even, you don't need the replay. It's not even close. I mean, just because a guy's neck snaps doesn't mean that it's helmet to helmet. So, Coach, with all that being said, what's something nationally that you would like to see changed at the Division III level?
Yeah, that's a tough question. Honestly, what I just talked about, I think would be a big one. I love that they moved to 40. 2013, we were 9-1, very good team at Wabash, and we did not make the playoffs. And I think we should have been in the playoffs, in my opinion. We lost to Wittenberg, who was good, a really good team as well. They made the playoffs, but I think we would have probably won a game or two that year. I thought we were good enough to do that, but honestly, we didn't. We got beat by Witt, so credit to Coach Fincham and his team. So I love that. I think football is at a good place right now. I think there's a lot of positives that have gone on, and I think the game is growing again. So honestly, I like the direction it's headed. I would love to see something there. I just don't like getting kids disqualified for stuff that is not malicious, right?
Right.
Not, or the intent isn't there on that. So, but I think that some of the things can be a little more uniform, but that's hard to do with there's so wide range of schools, over 200 plus schools, right? I don't even know the exact number anymore. Some add, some drop, So I think that's interesting with it all together. But that just regulating Division III and recruiting is going to be very difficult. Some schools are enrollment driven, all that. But I love the landscape. I think there's been a lot of positive changes since the COVID era, and you're seeing the game grow. I got a 10-year-old son playing ball, gets equipment on Sunday. It's growing here in Maine. It's growing everywhere. I think California, there's more young kids playing high school football than ever before. I read that the other day, so I love that because football is just awesome. So I like the direction it's in right now, to be honest with you.
And then growth wise, do you think, and I've seen this more recently in the last couple of weeks popping up a lot of places, will the NESCAC be joining the rest of the leagues that are introducing flag football for women?
I have not talked to our AD about it. I would not be surprised, but I don't think it's on the agenda yet. I don't want to speak for our administrative team here. We're usually at the forefront of that, and I think I think it'd be fun, to be honest with you. I got my 16-year-old. She's a really good swimmer. She'd be a great flag football player. She'd love it. But I think it's cool. I think what they're doing with that's good. I see it kind of growing. I love that. I think it's awesome.
And then let's talk about 2025 Bowdoin. What are we looking for? As you said, we're a week away from camp, and then 20 days later off to up against Tufts. So what are we looking for the 2025 season?
Yeah, I think the big question for us, I think, is who's going to take the reins at quarterback. We had Andrew Bull, who was in my first recruiting class, was a starter pretty much through his career, 21, 22, 23. Just a great player for us. We struggled last year. We played probably 3 different guys there. So 2 of those guys are back, and we got to we got to figure it out. And so Peter McCauley, who'll be a rising sophomore, Michael Wolfendale, who'll be a rising junior, and then our incoming freshman, Soren Hummel, a Bay Area kid. All 3 are going to be competitive. Now it's going to be hard for a true freshman, obviously, with limited stuff, not having spring. But I'm looking forward to seeing the early competition there. So we got to figure that position out. I love where our offensive line is. We bring back a ton of upperclassmen. So most of our starters, we graduated 2 fifth-year guys, one who was unfortunately hurt a lot last year, but another one who was an all-conference guy for a number of years for us that graduated. But I really like our young guys who are developing. So I think we're going to be bigger than we ever have been up front. I think we'll probably be 6'3", 280 plus at every position. Our center will probably be 6'2", 275. But I feel really good with those guys up front. I like our tight end, Jake Gaylord. He's 6'5", 230. So he's going to be a guy to look for. We're going to see who's going to earn the running back job. We got a handful of them right there. So I feel good there. We got a couple really good young incoming wide receivers. But they got to keep an eye on for us at receiver will be Slade Badinsky, kid from Vermont, will be a senior. So he kind of been overshadowed by some really good upperclassmen over the last couple of years. So this is the time for him. He's very fast. Was I think the 100-meter dash champion in Vermont, and out of high school. So super athletic kid. So we need him to have a big year just with his experience. And then so I'm excited. I'm excited to see who's going to win the job there. It's going to be a fun competition. But I love that our O-line starts up there with them. Then on defense, we lose one of the better DNs in the league, probably the best DN in the league, Coy Price, who was an all-region, D3 all-region guy, sack leader in the NESCAC. So Coy's moved on, graduated. But after Coy, we lost another interior guy, Aiden Reedy, who was a second-team all-conference guy, and then an outside backer, Danny Fiore, who's been a 4-year starter for us. So those 3, we had a few other guys rotate in, but after that, we bring everybody back. We started 4 true freshmen on defense. Those guys are going to be sophomores. So most of our defense, if I'm looking at it on paper right now, if you look at our corners, we'll have a senior corner, a junior corner. We'll have a sophomore or a freshman start at our overhang position, kind of slot corner. Both our safeties will be sophomores. Both our inside backers sophomores. So we're going to have one of our DNs, D tackle. One of our DNs, our D tackles will be a senior, and then the other one will be a redshirt sophomore. So it's going to be a really young group that played a lot of ball, and we're excited about them. I think they're going to be really good. One of them, Angus Leary, had 6 sacks as a true freshman at the end, and he's going to be special. So and then we get bigger up front too. Abe Herzog, 6'2", 270. He'll be as big as we've had in the middle there at D tackle, and he's going to be a sophomore. So we're excited. He played a lot as a freshman. So I think it's going to be a fun group to watch and develop with.
What a nice thing to come in for 3 guys that are battling out for the quarterback position to know that's what's in. Would you say 6'8", 280, and then your center might be 6'2", 270, but he's still a big boy.
You got some size now. Yeah, so I think they're going to grow. I'm just really pleased with their development. We have our two young sophomore potential guards, Matt Mexer and Henry Sheldon. They're both, like I said, 6'3", 6'4", 280, and they're strong in the weight room. So I'm really excited about them. Will Hoffman is going to be a junior. He's in that same boat. So this will be some serious playing time for Will, and so it's going to be fun. James Lucy, who's been a starter since his freshman year, will be a junior tackle, and James, a big kid. He's in that 6'3", 285 range. So we're excited. I know my offensive coordinator, he likes that. He's been an line coach, and my line coach is new, and he's excited to coach these guys. So I'm hoping they pay out like they should. They put the time in for sure.
Coach, what's the message to the Bowdoin alumni and the faithful that for the 2025 season? What should they expect to see from the product that goes out on the field?
Right. I think, like I tell them all along, we're going to be an ultra competitive football team. Since I've been here, the competitiveness has jumped up, ratcheted up a level. These guys that we have now are bought into football. And, we have a little golf outing with a good handful, about 50 of them on Friday. I love talking to them because these guys are all invested. They love it. They love seeing us competitive. Now we got to take that next step. We lost to Tufts by 2 points. We lost to Wesleyan, who won the league by 3 points. That's a winning season. The year before, we were right there again, lost to Amherst in a very close game, and that was the difference between a winning season for us. And, so we're right there. We're going to be very competitive. That's going to be the thing. Our kids are bought into it. We just got to stay healthy. When your roster is about 80, 82, you got to stay healthy in the right places. So, but they know we're going to be competitive. We're going to come out and play our butts off every week and give our Bowdoin alums and the parents and our student body here, football program, they'll be proud of. And I know my kids are hungry for it. I know they are. My staff is. And, it's fun talking about it. I'm looking forward to coaching them again. It's been a long summer. So, but it's going to be fun. Well, we've been a lot of recruiting and got a couple new coaches that are on their way and hired and ready to go. But like I said, all arrows point to up, and we just got to come out ready to play and battle with Tufts. And the good news with Tufts, Mike Berluti, their quarterback for the last 25 years, it feels like, has graduated. Thank goodness. I don't think he has any eligibility left. I'll make sure when I talk to Coach Savetti on that one, but he is as good as they've been. Very good player. So it'll be very refreshing to see a new face back there for them. And they graduated, I think, a lot of their O-line. So it's going to be fun. We've had some good games against them over the years, and last year came down to the wire, and they got us by 2. But we're going to be ready for them. It's going to be fun.
And then, what is the significance of Division III football?
I love Division III football. I really do. I think we do it the right way. In that's everybody give young men a great chance to continue their career. Like for me, I liked football more than I liked academics. Now, football got me to where I wanted to be academically. It was my motivation and stuff like that through that. And lucky enough, I went to a school like Wabash that loved football, supported it. I felt like that from my professors, and my professors engaged me, and I became a better student, young man from that. So, but what I love about football, especially our level, and any level, to be honest with you, it builds your character. It helps you deal with adversity. It makes you have great time management skills, and then it lets you strive for something and how you handle things. And I think it just prepares you for life. Football does, because you're going to put a lot of time into it. And it may not go the way you want it to. If you're in sales, you may not get that sale, but you stop. No, you got to keep grinding, keep working. But I think what it teaches you is all those things. And, I love it. I love it for little kids. I talk to parents all the time. I'm like, your kid will love playing football because it is the ultimate team game. There is a position for everybody, the big kids, the little kids, that kid that only can do is kick and punt. There's something for them, and there's few sports like that.
Right.
That's what's so good about football, and our level gives kids a great chance to go get a good education and continue playing a great game. And that's what's awesome about it. And what I tell every recruit, what I tell everybody is, my wife played lacrosse in college. She can still play lacrosse. She can do all those things. When you're done playing ball, you're not padded up again. It's over. And so you gotta really love it. So.
Well, Coach, now we gotta put a little asterisk on that. I don't know if you've caught it on social media, but there are these 30 and up leagues where we find a high school field, and I'm now 33. I'm not putting shoulder pads back on because I understand that just because I might feel good on Saturday, I have to go to work on Monday, and my body does not recover the way that it once did.
I am 47 and I can run straight ahead. You ask me to cut, it could be ugly for my knees, and yeah, so it's I'm just trying to stay in shape here. But no, it's definitely a young man's game. I give
Right.
those NFL guys credit, and if they're playing into their 30s, I get it why they're retiring a lot earlier now.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing sport. I love it. It's been so good to me in my life, and I'm lucky enough to have kids that want to play it, and it's kind of cool. I got two daughters, and my oldest, she loves football. Like, she's into it. She'll come to the games. She watches some film with me. She knows it all, gets it. Probably wants to get into in some form of that. What I love seeing right now is a lot of the Division I schools. They have a lot of women running their recruiting stuff, and
Right.
and I've talked to a bunch of them. My daughter's very interested in it. And man, they know football. It's great to talk with them when I go to some of the camps and stuff like that. They're on it, and so I think that's great for football. But then for myself, I got a 13-year-old. She just wants dad to be happy, man. She doesn't know, couldn't tell you anything. She after the game, she'll come up to me. Did you guys win, Dad? So it's cool to have that because my son and my oldest are like locked in on ball. My son will come to our practice padded out, ready for his practice later that afternoon. So he's all in, and my oldest is, but having my middle one, Ellie, she's just like, hey, Joanne, Dad, and it's cool because I could just hang out with her and not even think about football. So it's
Right.
great having that kind of environment at home with them. So
All right, Coach. Now we get to the Fast Five. None of these have to do with football. They just have to do with you.
yep.
If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Man, I can't turn down living in Maine in the summer and the fall, but my wife and I want to retire out in like carefree Arizona, Scottsdale, Arizona. Love it out there. Love the dry heat from my time in California. We head out there a lot. My in-laws have a place out there. I just love it out there. It's awesome. The heat doesn't bother me, and got some good friends out there. So that's our plan. Whenever we decide to say we're good, we're going to head out there and enjoy it out there.
Right. What's the most important lesson that you've learned thus far over your career?
I think it is that young men are going to grow, and they're going to grow from mistakes. I did. I know that. My players do that. And I think I became a much better coach on August 30th, 2008, when my oldest daughter, Layla, was born, because I became much more patient and I saw things through parents' eyes and all that, because we're in the business of letting these young men grow. And so I think that's the biggest thing I've learned as a coach. And you can draw up a perfect thing, but they got to understand it and execute it. But also, you're here to help them grow as young men and reach their potential on and off the field. So that's honestly what it is for me.
Right. If you weren't coaching, what would you be doing?
Oh man,
We heard pre-law earlier.
I would have probably got into something in law. My dad was in real estate development for a long time, and he did that through the government. Then he did it for the shopping mall developer Simon Property Group. So I've always been kind of involved with that with him, and I think that's probably the road I would have gone. Something probably down that road, just because it was what I knew and what I respected my dad doing for so many years and all that stuff. So probably down that road for sure.
Okay. Best compliment you've ever received?
Oh, geez, probably. I love getting the compliments about being a football player when I was a player. But honestly, just my wife marrying me, I think it's a big compliment in itself. I got a good one. She's awesome. She's been a good coach's wife, and she coaches a lot too, and has done that. And so just the fact that she said she would, that tells you something right there. I think I did a good job with that one for sure.
And then the other side of compliments. What's the best insult you've ever gotten?
Oh man, too many, too many to count. That's all part of it. I kind of let that build and let it motivate me. So I let it kind of brush off my back. But you take them when you come, and you're never going to make everybody happy. I've been doing this long enough. As long as I'm taking care of my players and my family and my coaches and doing it the right way, in my opinion. There's always going to be someone who thinks you're not, but you just gotta, hey, got to trust yourself and do that. So can't let that get you too much.
Right.
I'm a big Rocky fan, so I love Rocky. He gave a little speech to his son in the movie Rocky Balboa. You got to take the hits and keep moving forward. So that's kind of my philosophy on it. So,
okay. The last question, I ask everybody the same thing at the end of this episode, at the end of each episode. It is, was there a question you were expecting me to ask you? And if so, how would you have answered it?
Excellent. No, to be honest with you, I think you asked pretty much everything I kind of expected. There wasn't anything, that you didn't really throw me for a loop too much or anything I think you missed. So, obviously with the NESCAC, we get a lot of interesting questions because a lot of people don't know all the ins and outs because we kind of operate in our own bubble here. But, you've done some research, which was good. And, there's obviously a few things, like I told you, hey, 10 spring practices and,
Right.
our process of recruiting here is a little bit different. When I was at Wabash and Allegheny, we were recruiting kids up until, May and June, and here, I've already got almost most of my class will probably be filled up by the time we roll into camp here. So
Right.
It's just a different process, so, but no, love the questions. Thought it was good.
Coach, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time.
Awesome.
Obviously, good luck this year. We're going to be, when this episode comes out, we'll have you on the board. I don't know exactly which week yet because we're pre-recording these. For those of you sticking around, what comes next. We go to overtime where hopefully it's better than last year because my fiance beat me in picking games, and I haven't heard the end of it, and I can't imagine that I'm going to hear the end of it at least until we get the new standings out. So, but Coach, I want to say thank you again very much for just taking the time and talking about Bowdoin football. And we'll be right back, Chuckleheads.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Dingo Talk. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. For more info and to contact the show, you can find us on Twitter @DingoTalk.